Schwartz, your host and chief nerd. Welcome to Sales for Nerds, the podcast for people who love using their expertise to serve clients but maybe aren't quite so enthusiastic about the sales and marketing aspects of the business. I struggled with this for years, ironically, as a sales and marketing consultant to the Fortune 500. Over time, I realized that there was a more effective, more authentic way to get clients by helping instead of selling, teaching instead of marketing, and connecting instead of networking. My mission is to help you learn the easy way instead of the way I learned it, by sharing my stories, by bringing on awesome guests to share their stories. And of course, as a software guy, I had to go and create the CRM I'd wished I'd had when I was struggling with more traditional systems. It does more of what us solo consultants need, help us nail our positioning, help us get more leads and conversations off our website, get more referrals, have more conversations, automates proposals all the way through to e-signature and more, and less of the bloat that comes with traditional CRMs. If you want to check it out, you can start a free trial at mimiran.com. That's MIMIRAN.com. And you can even just sign up for the free version, which helps you nail your positioning. And you can also find proposal templates, lead magnet ideas, and more. Once again, that's MIMIRAN.com. Now let's get to it.
Today, I'm super excited to have with me Ashley DePaulis of Embodied Success. She actually brings together mind, body, and spirit so that you can actually function more productively, live better, work better, have more fun, be less stressed. And as I was telling Ashley just before we started, I used to have all these terrible headaches because I would either be reading or staring at a screen constantly. And my back would get all hunched up and I would get tight and my eyes would hurt and my head would hurt and it sucked and it kept happening. And over time, I got a lot better at taking care of myself properly so that I could actually do more. Even though it felt like I was taking more breaks, I was actually able to work much better and have much more fun and not end up with migraines. And then yesterday, somehow, for the first time in a long time, I don't know whether it was like my subconsciousness getting ready for this interview or something, I ended up in that spot with the hunched up back and the eyes hurting and the headache and all that. So we have been spending a ton of time on Sales for Nerds talking about the mind, maybe talking a little bit about the spirit. We have not really paid much attention to the body, and you can't do the mind and spirit stuff without the body. So I'm super excited to have with me here, Ashley DePaulis. Welcome to Sales for Nerds.
Thank you for having me. And I'm really excited to talk about the body because the body leads.
That's right. Excellent. Well, I'm here with some more Burgevin Lane Moonspell Cabernet Sauvignon from Walla Walla Valley. And for folks who are, if you're listening to these one after another, that's the same wine I was having with Rick, because I had half the bottle yesterday and I'm having the other half today. But anyway, speaking of the body, Ashley, how did you get into this as a field of specialty? It's not really something that people maybe grow up and dream of being an athlete, but they don't grow up of dreaming to teach corporations how to have their employees' bodies function better, I don't think.
No, they don't. And I didn't either necessarily. I have always just had an intrinsic motivation towards health and the body and movement. So that's how I've ended up here. And it showed up not only in play as a kid, but in third grade, there was a girl in my class who was being made fun of because she was maturing faster than others. And so the boys were picking on her. And I had the bright idea at the time to suggest that I take the bus home with her and that we play. And at the time, my idea of play, which has expanded now, was me holding a stopwatch, having her run up and down the stairs, walk along the landscaping for balance and all kinds of other things. And she never invited me over again. And I don't blame her. So I believe, though, it really speaks to what I was naturally inclined for, helping people feel better in their bodies. And she didn't ask me that specifically, but it definitely speaks to that.
Okay, so that's interesting. And I have so many questions, but in the interest of time,
Yes.
Moving on past third grade.
Yes. How did this all happen?
Were you a big athlete in high school?
I have always been a recreational athlete. I was never a, serious collegiate athlete. I, played all kinds of recreational sports. I grew up in Texas. So Texas is all about athletics. And I became a fitness instructor when I went and got my master's. I just kind of did that for fun. And then that became kind of like a side job along with my more serious jobs. And because it was a side gig and a role that I was in, I worked in health policy for a while, and that role ended. And so I naturally just picked up more fitness classes, and people started asking me to be their personal trainer and their health coach. And that's kind of along that same line, pretty much at the same time that started. I like to say I accidentally started a business at that time. And I started my healing journey from PTSD because I was in a car accident when I was 19, and I healed all the physical fairly easily after surgery, and then was in another car accident at the same time I was starting my business. And a family friend had introduced me to what's called EMDR, which is a form of therapy for PTSD. Because what can happen within the body is that the mental, emotional trauma can reawaken after a similar traumatic event. So that's when I started that journey alongside starting a business and have ended up here today. Part of the reason for workplaces is the team aspect, for one, because I do relate to being an athlete and, running and moving in a team environment, but also I have a background in public health. So working in larger groups and facilitating that process is also something I enjoy.
So was your master's in public health?
Mm-hmm. Focused on health promotion, education, and behavior.
And what does EMDR stand for?
Eye movement desensitization reprocessing or something like that, or rapid something
Okay.
like that.
We'll have to find that out and put that in the show notes.
Yes.
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Okay. Now, is this similar to like the mind-body prescription from Sarno, or is this totally different?
What I do specifically, I don't do EMDR. So therapists do run EMDR. That's just a modality. That was the first modality I was exposed to for healing PTSD. I was exposed to many more modalities as well. And we also know that movement is a huge form of helping people process, whether it's from trauma or whether it's just everyday processing your life and what's happening. So movement is like my jam. Movement, play, all of that.
Okay. Now, for people who spend most of their lives behind a desk, like I do, and really it's pretty good. Like I don't have a lot of complaints. It's much better than weeding rice paddies or tilling fields or breaking rocks, right? A lot of things that a lot of people still do today that most humans have done throughout history. I feel like I have it really good. But at the same time, I can't quite escape this feeling that this is not really the environment that humans evolved to be in, and that there's something sort of dislocated about it that is not right for your body and ends up not being right for your mind and your spirit and your productivity as well.
I agree with that, because one thing we were talking about before hopping on here, and it's an easy way to tap into the body and change your perspective, is that when we're sitting in front of a computer all day, like we're in the same position. When we're in the same position and posture, for one, we're not tapping into an expansive consciousness when you're staying in that position all day. If you move in and out of it, that's one thing. But if you're staying in it, then you're going to come against stagnancy and energy. We start yawning, we get tired, and we don't know why. And it's because you haven't probably been breathing deeply. You've been looking in the same direction. So one way to reorient that is actually if you can't get outside is a great place to reorient your perspective, but just looking up and expanding your view versus head down and, chin to your chest where you're cutting off your airway. And, when you're reorienting that view, actually taking deep breaths. A lot of people don't breathe into their belly, their lower back, their obliques, and that sort of thing. And that's where we can come up against pain. A majority of back pain is due to not breathing properly. So, yeah.
So there's probably a bunch of people.
Very important.
you would think, right? And we only get one. So you'd think we would take care of it. And yet so many people have back problems, joint problems. We have a epidemic of diabetes and obesity and all kinds of other issues going on at a level that we've never had before, right? All of this prosperity and modernity is doing some wonderful things for us, but apparently it's not doing great things for our bodies. So I guess where should people start? How do they know if this is a problem for them or that they should be paying attention to this?
Well, you need to pay attention to it and you'll know it's a problem if you're experiencing pain, if you're having trouble sleeping, if you're going to, food is one of those things that in and of itself, it is emotional and it is social. But when we're taking it to the level of using it to cope, so anything that we are using, we can use anything to cope. It's when it becomes an unhealthy coping mechanism for us due to stress. So a majority of the chronic diseases that we have are due to stress. So when that stress is not managed through movement, through breathing, through taking breaks, through, working with a practitioner, there's so many ways. There's not just one way. We know all the ways. It's just, are we going to do it? Simply getting up and getting out of your chair during the day is something that can exponentially change how you experience your body and how you feel in your body. So what was the question? Am I answering the question?
Well, and I think part of the challenge is there's so many things that are screwed up with most of us because we're so out of our natural environment. And so on one hand, I want to be expansive and let people understand the scope of what's going on. And I also want you to be able to give them the practical advice that if you happen to be listening at your desk right now, you can do right now. Or if you're out for a run or a walk, you can do this tomorrow when you are sitting at your desk and you catch yourself like, oh, I've been hunched over too long and staring at the screen and my eyeballs are starting to hurt and I'm feeling cranky, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not just that the body feels sore, your mind also starts not running the way you really want it to.
Yes. So one of the things that I like to tell people, if they don't have a practiced connection to their body, because a lot of people are like, I don't know how I feel. Like they know they feel bad,
right?
Or they know they don't feel good, but it's like, how do I tap into making the choice in the moment when I recognize I'm feeling not so good, or if I recognize I'm not breathing? Sometimes it's like that recognition point, like, where is it? So if that's challenging for somebody, then I say, put a awareness alarm on your phone. You can do it. You can start with one alarm that goes off maybe at noon or 11, your time. Or you can do, sometime in the morning, like that 11 time, 2 and 5, if you want to, get ambitious with it. But just when that alarm goes off, recognizing, okay, you can stand up, feet on the floor, take some breaths and just notice what you really want to start with, notice what you're noticing, observing your body, like where your breath is. A lot of times it's in our chest or in our throat, and we want to be able to take it down into the belly. So those are places that you can just start. If you're somebody who's practiced at connecting to your body. Maybe you do that easily, like you're somebody who regularly participates in physical activity. You can take it up a notch and notice when you're doing activity, the narrative that plays in your mind around discomfort or getting uncomfortable. That's a good, and recognizing where that shows up in the body. So those are just two different options for where people might be in their process. But it's a continual practice. It's not something that's like one and done.
Sure. And it's something that in our quote unquote natural environment, we would just be doing. That would be our default state instead of the thing that our alarm reminds us to do. Now, how much time does someone need to make this effective? Because I think a lot of us are thinking, yes, I would love to sleep right. I'd love to eat right. I'd love to exercise more. I mean, how many people make those kind of New Year's resolutions and they last, several hours or days or weeks or months or whatever, but few people turn them into lasting changes. So how can people, I guess, what's the minimum viable step that people can take that's going to show them that this is worthwhile and they should keep doing more?
I'd say start where you are. So the minimum and that everyone's going to be in a different place. For me, I take way more time because I am very practiced at this. And so I know myself and what works for me. And it's small increments. So if you have a awareness alarm go off, take 90 seconds to start, then go up to 3 minutes, and then build from there. Start where you are. If you're not doing anything and you set an alarm and it's just like you noticed yesterday, your shoulders were in your ears, work with your shoulders and see what that opens up for you. And then when your alarm goes off again, if you notice your shoulders stay there, if you notice another part of your body move down into it, you might notice your sit bones. It's just start, quite honestly.
So if I'm doing the math correctly, because this is Sales for Nerds after
I
all.
am not a math person. So yes, you please do the math.
We could set 1 to 3 alarms per day. And we should spend 90 seconds doing stuff when that alarm goes off. So if we have 3 of them, that's a little bit less than 5 minutes of time that you're asking for. You're not asking for, I mean, it's like a Wordle. It's like a couple minutes on social media. It's not, it's a quarter of a Netflix episode. We're not talking about like Olympic level time commitment.
No, these short. So what we're talking about right now are like short recess breaks. So you can take a mini 90-second recess break on your own. You can do those multiple times throughout the day. You can take up to 20 minutes if you'd like, if you're somebody who likes to go out for a walk or, get in some stretching or something like that. But again, start where you are. So yes, those shorter breaks.
I think that's a great point. So we're not asking for a ton of time. We're going to feel better just from taking those 90 seconds here and there. I remember for decades, I was like, I should really meditate. I would feel so much better if I did, but I don't have time. And someone convinced me I should do like a 5-minute meditation, and they recommended the Headspace app. And I was like, well, that's not really going to work, but 5 minutes, like, where can I go wrong? And I'm like, holy crap. That really did a lot in 5 minutes. Imagine what you could do imagine if you did a whole 10 or 15, right? And so how much are you up to now in your practice? Or do you even think of it that way?
I definitely take time out to meditate. I take time out to exercise. And those are longer jaunts, I guess you could call them. But I definitely also take time out of my chair. I am somebody who, and it's funny, I remember a boss pointed this out to me and I already knew this, but if I sit too long, then I start to do the leg shake. So that's an indication to me, like it's time for me to get up, or my butt starts feeling numb. So I know these things about myself. So it's my body saying, hey, it's time for you to get up. And so I'll get up, and I don't mentally say, okay, I'm getting up for 5 minutes. It's like, no, I get up, do whatever I'm called to do during that time, and then I go back to work when I'm called to go back to work. I'm not so regimented in how I'm doing it. It's just that I'm always listening to my body.
Mm-hmm.
So then I know when to dip in and out.
Well, and I guess I'm thinking of people who might want to talk to you and say, hey, come in and help my team.
Mm-hmm.
You say, well, they need to exercise 4 hours a day during the workday. There's going to be a lot of skeptical people, right? So you're not talking about that. You're talking about 30 minutes of stretching and walking around and some eating and whatnot, and then some exercise in off hours.
Mm-hmm. Again, where people have to start where they are. If I were going in to work with a team, I created a community called Recess in the Club, which anyone can join. And that actually teaches and trains you to take breaks. So there are live breaks that are going to be happening in the club with me. So I will be walking people through a break or facilitating a break. And there will be prompts to have people take breaks on their own and suggestions on what those can be so that people are getting outside. So it's not, these breaks aren't only for movement or exercise. It's movement that you're not staying in the same place all day, but it's not necessarily exercise or fitness related. It can be, doesn't have to be, type of thing. It's breathing, it's sensory, tapping into your senses. It is movement. There's a lot of space to play when it comes to how you're breathing life. Mm-hmm. And I'm just using the breath as a visual, breathing life into your body, breathing life into creativity, productivity, all the things that employers care about when it comes to their employees, and reducing these things, these smaller things that we do, reduce stress, because not always so exercise puts stress, like longer exercise puts stress on the body. So are you somebody, a lot of clients that I worked with one-on-one, they kept piling stress on and had no stress reducers. So it's like, where are you imbalanced in that way? So it's getting people to see things that are not really helping them or are adding to their stress, and subtracting those things and putting in small little morsels of new habits.
So is this like someone who's really busy and needs to work out, and so they pile on like Ironman training or something? Is that the kind of thing you're talking about when you say they keep adding stresses? I
wouldn't go as far as Ironman training, but because I have worked with athletes, and I've worked with people who were in corporate and previously considered themselves as athletes. Maybe they lost that because they're working all the time. So they were either overworking or overtraining, mm-hmm. and not taking enough time for play or de-stressing because they were so exhausted. So it's like getting somebody back to that point. What are the things that de-stress us versus I'm piling more stress on myself?
And so some of the things that you might think of as de-stressors, like I'm going to go do a workout, they were turning into a stressor because they needed to achieve XYZ or whatever.
Yes.
I've been there. I'm not much of an athlete, but I've been there.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the workspace, the physical workspace that people are in. What should people be doing or not doing to, other than taking the breaks? I'm imagining there's differences in how we sit and how we work and our chairs or whatever else that we might want to pay attention to that are going to help us a lot.
Mm-hmm. So one of the ideas I was sharing before we hopped on here and I spoke to a little bit is our vision. So that's one of our senses. And when we're in front of a screen all the time, which a majority of us are, even if we have a job at a restaurant, usually our way to go de-stress or decompress is like get on our screen and scroll. But that's like an adding a stressor when it's numbing. So it feels decompressing, but it's not actually, it can get us in loops of thought that aren't healthy for us. So that's becomes stressful.
And often bad posture too, right? When you're like,
yeah, because you have your head down. Yeah. So these are like the little nuanced things that I'm talking about. So you can, for every 45 minutes, say that you're on in front of a screen, then take at least 5 or 10 minutes off of a screen. Put your vision either outside, up, stare at the wall. I don't care. Because that's actually downtime for your brain. When you're scrolling, that's like more information coming in, and it's more for you to process. Like, we're having to process so much nowadays. And it's like, when do we give ourselves time to not process? Staring at a wall, moving helps us process. So when you can add some of that in, I even like to tell people when they experience, so maybe you're in a meeting, you're on the screen, you can't, get off, and you feel stress come up in your body. You're triggered by something somebody says or whatever. You can take your hand, you won't see it if I put it down, and just shake it off at the side of your body. Like, those things can help you regulate your nervous system in the moment, so that you're not carrying that stress. Another thing I like to do is kind of like a little figure 8 with my wrist. You can press your feet into the floor, like find your feet grounded into the floor. Those are other things that you can do in the moment.
So you kind of get out of whatever loop your head is stuck in, and you get back into your whole body.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you notice it, I think most people at the start, because I can speak from, working with numerous clients, it's that loop in the mind, but we also feel it flush through our body. So that can also be an indicator. The two are connected. It's not like, it's a feedback loop. So it's like, which one do you notice first? Do you notice the mind, or do you notice the body? And when you notice one, pay attention to the other.
But a lot of times people, I think, don't realize that they think they're stuck in their head, mm-hmm. especially people who do cerebral work all day, forget that their body is part of that. Mm-hmm. And I think so many of us abuse our bodies so badly, like it's in the sense that society doesn't even notice. They just think it's normal. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of forgotten what it feels like to feel normal, to feel good, to feel alive and joyous, I guess, in this own amazing machine that we walk around in all day, or don't walk around in.
It's not a machine.
It's not a machine. Okay. Correct me.
It's not a machine. And it doesn't need to be fixed.
Okay.
You are not broken, and you don't need to be fixed. Those are just it's funny, like within the healthcare system, because we go to the doctor and we think somebody else is going to fix us and do something for us. And although if we do have a broken bone and the doctor, casts it to help fix it, you are not, what ends up happening, and the reason why I say you're not broken and don't need to be fixed, is when we're constantly relying upon other people to help us. Yes, we can go to other people to help us, but when we are constantly relying upon that as the answer, then we start to think we're broken, something's wrong with us, we need somebody else to tell us what to do. When if you just take a beat, just take a moment, listen to the body, your body was telling you yesterday, okay, I need to relax a little. Do something to relax. Like, it's honestly that simple, and we make it so complicated.
So let me go back to what you corrected me on before. You said the body is mm-hmm. not a machine. What is the body?
The body is a wise, and there was one point in time where people believed the body was a machine. Like, medicine said that the body is not a machine. The body is always working for your survival. So it will find pathways to stay alive. And its last symptom or last signal to you that something is wrong usually is pain. Pain is like the final symptom. So there's signals all along the way. Your body is very wise and it's pointing you in the direction that you need to take action in. And pain is the last symptom or sign that you're going to receive. So that means like you've let it get really far. And that is a call for change.
So prior to that, it would be ache, discomfort, soreness, stress,
insomnia, overeating, all those over-consuming.
So maybe I'm just missing something here, but doesn't that just mean we're a very sophisticated machine?
I don't consider the body a machine. If you want to call the body a machine, sure, but I do not. I think when we view the body as a machine, I think the body is an intelligence. And yes, a machine has intelligence, but it also can't do what humans can do or what you have the power to do for yourself.
In the terms of sense of understanding itself and sort of self-correcting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I think we're arguing semantics. I think we're saying the same thing and we're just like using slightly different words, but I wanted to be sure.
Okay.
Because I agree, like most machines don't just go around fixing themselves. Of course, most machines are very specific about what inputs and outputs they need and what their operating parameters are. And maybe part of the curse of being human is we're so flexible on that because we can survive a lot of stuff. Even if we don't thrive and it's not optimal, we don't notice that maybe we haven't been providing the right inputs or the right environment until, like you say, things get really bad.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have to let things get really bad.
As much as I agree with this, because that's why I wanted to have you on here. I mean, I like to think that I'm somewhat in touch with my body and that really helps me. And I feel better than I did a decade ago. I definitely feel older, but overall, I feel better because my kids are older and I actually get to work out and stuff like that. But for folks who are listening, who might be skeptical and think, oh, this is just one of those weird millennial things. Like what happened to just working hard and toughing it out and all that? What would you say to those folks?
Working hard and toughing it out. Well, I believe, and you can tell me if this was your experience or not. I know it's been mine. Working hard and toughing it out only gets you so far. Like you come to a fork in the road of working hard and toughing it out. It's not to say quit working or quit being challenged through work and so on and so forth. It's saying there's another path to supporting yourself through all that you desire to create. Because age comes up against us at some point, like you shared. Can't do things the same as you always did them. In clients that I worked with that had injuries or health challenges, but wanted to perform at a super high level, they had to start doing things differently. You put in, and this is one of the things that I recognize with them and even with myself, is you put in so much work. And so when you've planted those seeds, they've sprouted, they've grown into a tree. You don't need to keep planting that same seed to grow a new tree. It's like, how are you leveraging what's there? And that's where people get tripped up in the, I have to keep working hard thing. It's like, no, how are we helping this flourish? I've already built this thing. How am I helping it flourish?
To take that out of metaphor, give me an example.
Yeah. One athlete client of mine comes to mind. She was 65. She's a competitive rower. And she would do regatta. The regatta gala makes me think of Friends. Regattas all over the world. She was experiencing pain, and it was pain that she couldn't get to go away. She had gone to all kinds of practitioners. She would experience really low energy, have a hard time recovering after races, and people just told her, hey, you just need to rest. And so she would rest, but then keep experiencing that same cycle over and over. So for me, I call that the burnout cycle. And there's a cycle that we go through that, we keep going through until we break it, as with any cycle. And it wasn't that she needed to rest. We always need to rest and recover, but she also needed to not follow. So when we're part of a team, a lot of times we fall into, and then especially if we're experiencing pain, maybe we feel like the weakest link on that team for some reason. We can fall into thought patterns that tell us that we have to do what all the other team members are doing to be as good as them or to perform as well. And what she needed to do was actually follow what helped her perform well versus what she saw other people on the team doing. That was one thing. Another thing was that she didn't actually need to, and this speaks to the I need to work hard, push through. She thought she had to keep working out hard to stay at that level. And it's like, no, you're there. You can still work out, but maybe you don't need to do that 5 days a week, really hard. So it's like, how do you, get into those pushes where you get a little discomfort to get better or stay at the level you're at, but then you're usually at that level, you need to rest a lot more and you need to feel okay with it.
And I'm not at that level, but one thing I've noticed is I used to want to work out every day, maybe take one day off a week and work out hard. And now it's like, I try to work out hard every other day, 3 or 4 times a week. And if I do it 2 days in a row, bad things are going to happen. As much as I might, part of me craves that. And part of me feels sad that I can't do it anymore. I'm too old, et cetera. But if I just let myself enjoy having that sort of hard day and then an easy day, then I feel good all the time, which is the whole point in the first place.
I'll just say this too, because you said you feel good all the time or you find more joy in it. It's that most of the people that come to me or that have come to me in the past, it's always that the joy was lost because there was just this mentality of work hard all the time. And so the fun and that needed to come back in. So it's like how to revive that.
Yeah. And I think it's hard. Modern life in many ways is so good, but it's so fast paced and attention consuming and sort of unmoored from your own center that you can have everything. Everything is on paper really good, but somehow you're not joyful about it because you're just so run down, right? And let's get back and recapture some of that joy. Not that life is all joy, but there should be some, especially when you have it good, right? What's the point of having it good if you're not enjoying it? Now, I want to ask a couple quick questions before I let you go, because I feel like you can't really have a conversation about health and body and all that without talking about eating and sleeping. So do you have any tips for people on those?
Have a routine around your sleep. And that doesn't have to be perfectly, I get up at the same time and go to bed, but that could be where someone starts, go wake up at the same time, go to sleep at the same time. I generally do that naturally. I've never had to have a hardcore schedule, but I know some people may need to do that. And I think giving yourself, when you wake up in the morning, one thing that people always went crazy for, which I thought was so funny because it was simple. And we tend to underestimate the simple things, but they make the biggest difference, is when you wake up in the morning, have a glass of water. Add lemon to it if you like lemon in your water, but drink that before you start downing coffee. Hydrate yourself because you haven't hydrated all through the night. And that's a really great way also to keep your stress hormones from going wild in the morning. So coffee can wake up those stress hormones like cortisol. And even though coffee is also good in moderation, but water can help neutralize. It's like the pH balance. You can think of it that way. So having water when you wake up, before you have your coffee. And that's a simple thing that you can do. And it'll teach you and train you to have more water earlier in the day versus, oh my gosh, I haven't had water and I need to consume all this water. And then you're up all night peeing. Like that's not a good thing for your sleep either. Powering down is a big one before you go to sleep. I think almost a nighttime routine is a lot. I like both, but can be more important for people who are just starting out. It's like, turning down the lights, powering down, not being on your screen at least 45 minutes, if not 2 hours before, you go to bed. So not like having your computer in bed and shutting down and then trying to sleep, because then I know for me, when I've done that, it's like, I can't shut my mind down at all.
When we're letting someone else kind of occupy the center of our attention, whatever the thing is on the other end of the screen, that probably doesn't have our health and best interest at heart. And what about food? Food
is one of those complicated things for people sometimes. I work from home. Most people work from home. You don't necessarily have to think about prepping your food all the time. But having easy, like one thing I love doing, which I'm surprised more people don't do this, rotisserie chicken. You know how great it is to have a rotisserie chicken on hand if you eat meat. So that's why I don't always like to get into food, because then it's like meat eater or not meat eater or whatever. But eat throughout the day. Eat when you're hungry. Don't make it complicated. Don't eat from packages. Try to get fresh food, all those things.
Yeah. If you have a Costco membership and you eat chicken, it's really hard to beat the $5 Costco rotisserie chicken.
Yeah.
It's better than the Whole Foods, like $12 rotisserie chicken, which is still probably a pretty good deal. Something that I've noticed a big difference is trying not to have any simple carbs until dinner. I can't avoid it entirely because I have kids and family, and plus I just like them. But I've sort of gotten rid of that crash that I used to have after breakfast and after lunch when I got done processing my sandwich or my pancakes or my bagel or whatever it was. It's like, wow, I actually just have energy throughout the day. This is crazy. And I'm old and slow and have various other problems. But it used to be like, I need a nap, or I was chugging coffee or Coca-Cola or something like that just to try to power through those dips.
Yes. So that's what I'd kind of put under the packaged food. So if you're eating most of your food from packages versus fresh sources like the protein, so getting most people need to get more protein in their diet than carbs. It's not to say you need to eat carbs. Carbs are like the body's first energy source, but a lot of people are eating their simple carbs. I don't even think about it like that, but I'm glad you said it that way. Eating kind of those packaged carbs or bread, pasta carbs that don't sustain us as long as if you put that carb with a protein, with a fruit or a vegetable, like looking at your meal being a little more balanced. And protein is one of those things that's going to sustain us longer because it takes longer to digest. It doesn't have the sugar spike effect, so on and so forth.
Yeah. And the vegetables have plenty of carbs. We don't need to have like mainline pasta, rice, potatoes, wheat. It's cheap and convenient, but we get plenty of carbs from having just plain old vegetables, right? Along with the other dietary fiber and other good things that they have in them, I guess.
Yes. But you can have carbs. It's okay.
You can have carbs.
You need carbs.
If I have carbs at lunch, it's game over for me. Like I cannot stay awake.
When you say what would that be? Carbs, I think about vegetables.
Simple carbs. Simple, like a taco or a rice and curry or something like that. If I have I usually have a salad for lunch and then I'm fine. Right. And that you're right. That's all carbs, but it's not the simple processed carbs.
Gotcha. Rice is actually good. Is a good thing.
It's
But
not a
you may
bad
find
thing. It
that
just makes me
you,
sleepy.
yeah, you may find that you react to it. I have to eat. Yeah. So, anyways,
So yeah, we could
food,
probably do a
complicated.
whole episode about this and not even
I don't
scratch
want
the
to be your
surface.
food person for an
Okay.
episode.
So here we go. Talk to Ashley about movement, not about eating, people.
You can
She
talk
does
to
them-
me about eating. I just don't like getting into the like I personally have to eat gluten-free because I have reactions to food. So that I can't speak to what everyone's experience is going to be, which is why I don't like to get in the weeds about food. It's kind of like, choose healthy options. Like you're saying, it's not bad or wrong to eat simple carbs. Sometimes we can have a mentality around that. If you notice, I think the biggest thing with food is if you notice that it's not making you feel well, then change it. That's the thing.
Right. Then that's what it was for me with the simple carbs early. I still will have a bowl of pasta for dinner because then I'm going to go to sleep anyway. Well, Ashley, if people want to learn more, where can they find you?
Yes, I hang out on LinkedIn. And it's just my name. I'm sure you'll put a link in the notes.
Yes, we'll have a link there, linkedin.com in Ashley DePaulis, but we will have that all spelled out for people. But I think if they search for Ashley DePaulis, they're going to find you right on LinkedIn.
They're going to find me. And another place is Mighty Networks. If you search Recess in the Club, that is my free community where you can take recess breaks with me. So learning how to infuse breaks into your day and be a gentler, kinder boss to your body.
Awesome, Ashley. I hope you find some people who are listening now in your club soon. I know I signed up and I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much for taking the time and joining us. Cheers.
Of course. Cheers to you.
Thanks for listening. Did something in this episode or a past episode help you out? I'd love to hear about it. Send comments, questions, or ideas for future episodes to hello@salesfornerds.io. And of course, iTunes reviews are super helpful for getting the word out. So if you've got a few moments to put one of those up, I'd really appreciate it. If you got a friend who'd benefit from one of these episodes, send a link. If you got a friend who wouldn't benefit from one of the episodes, but you just haven't talked to in a while, this is a great excuse to pick up the phone and give them a call. Of course, if you're looking for a whole new take on CRM for solo consultants, along with proposal templates, lead magnet ideas, free positioning tools, and more, check it out at mimiran.com. That's MIMIRAN.com. Again, thanks for listening, and until next time.